outside of the birds, any other questions? The burbs.
Okay, so we went over the birds, the steak. As far as we know, the other two churches were either turned tailing running or realized he was dead, and we don't know what's going to come of that.
Yep.
So we should again probably mention that to them. But I don't consider it a fail because I think we scared them good enough in character that they would
killed one of them, and we killed one of them, and the other is very, very much scared. I feel like that is also a very good. Like we did good.
Yes.
Let's see. What else? I think. Shit. The bomb we took care of. I can't remember. Yeah, bomb we took care of.
I hopefully no longer have any more bombs in my chest.
Well, Mason's not here, so we can't do that. Or we can't go over that.
Can't go over what?
About, though, well, Ben keeps bringing it up, and he keeps fucking avoiding it. Hey, so I knew Decibel blew up your house. You might want to check into that. And every time I bring it up in character, he's just like,
He calls himself being more tactical in approaching it. I think he's mentally preparing for the worst thing to have happened in his regards. Remember, one of his favorite touchstone, had returned from their vacation that he paid for, and he believed that she was at the house, at his home.
Yeah, but wouldn't logic dictate rip the Band-Aid off and find out for sure?
It definitely could be a factor, but I think that a good portion of it is avoiding or potentially trying to prepare and avoid that as long as possible. There's a lot of potential trauma in the idea of it.
Oh, by the way, I'm going to have to cut off a little early. I've got school shit that I have to go to.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Well, being as it is just the three of us at this moment, and we may have a joiner if Duma is able to make it, but barring that, do we have any other questions, suggestions, hypotheses, anything along those lines? Okay, and do we remember where we were when we last left our coterie members?
Going to talk with the warlocks?
Yes. On the Indiana campus. And you all had made it inside and were lounging and waiting in their waiting area for them to conduct and conclude whatever it was they were working on. In the process of doing so, well, there's no need of beating around the bush. I want to thank you guys. You guys have donated, that you've given, so that we can share in the moments of these characters. We have experienced a lot of the defining moments of who they are and who they believe they are over the last few seasons. And it's been very, very enjoyable for me watching these characters develop themselves and explore the worlds around them. There's no way for me to say it except for thank you. Thank you so very much. And if there are no further questions, suggestions, hypotheses, or corners we need to round off, I'd like to say that this is officially Steelheart's Rested Soul Season 3 premiere. Millions of the Mouthless dead. When we last left our coterie, they managed to do the impossible several times in quick succession, from finding out a portion of the truth of Mason's past, of bringing him back from the dead, of destroying a warlock in their own sanctum, to fighting predators of the sky, large enough to make off with large to medium-sized dogs. They'd fought creatures from the hellish imaginations of the past, the very physical embodiment of the wild hunt on the wing, riders of the sky, hunters of the mind's darker recesses. They'd also managed to do all of this unprepared and completely on their back foot. In the doing of bringing Mason back from the dead, Ben was herself poisoned. Leonetti was nearly blown up by a plan placed into motion weeks upon weeks ago. And if that was not all, they experienced the worst pain known to modern man, having to wait. Moments passed, turning quickly into a quarter of an hour. Marcus, having slipped off, exploring the mental minefield of a chantry in near lockdown. Mason, having made his speech once more of utilizing the skills apparent to become the prince, and Leonetti realizing that while kindred are in fact undead monsters, unliving creatures of night with a vacuumous void in their chest, demanding the extinguishment of all life around them. They are inherently monstrous. But there are worse things. There are people in the world willing to go to every extreme to ensure the destruction of these monsters, even if it means replacing them by becoming monsters themselves. The very real fact is that while it was a shape charge and while it was designed to end Leonetti's life, it was also designed to take as many people, living, dead, and any step in between, with him. They were willing to risk him being in the company of other kindred while in the midst of unknown number of living human beings. That level of acceptable collateral damage is mentally unacceptable to him. While his experiences had taught him to be cold and to manage his expectations, to manage his own pains and potential suffering so that the greater good can be done, there's never any acceptable collateral damage. Swinging to Ben in regards to collateral damage, the freedom she holds dearer than her own life is at risk. Her understanding of what has been asked, what has been demanded, what has been traded to Decibel to ensure no further revenge against Mason and the coterie lays in the balance. There is a debt that must be paid or the agreement is void. And here she sits once more, inches from death's cold embrace because of her cherishment of her coterie mate. Something she did without thinking, put her life and body on the line for his. And as she began to slowly realize those were the actions that she was taking part in, just as it began to dawn, she yet once more put the immortality laying ahead of her on the line to ensure his continued existence. So we open with the coterie waiting, looking for all intents and purposes like the little rascals outside of the principal's office, in various states of destroyed fabric and destroyed spirits, rebuilding themselves by the moment. Mason having returned to his glib and gleeful self, his promise of being a better kindred and leading others, leading the city, taking control and becoming the prince Leonetti pledging himself to help. And Duma earnestly considering it. And just as the quiet moments stretch, yearning toward the horizon line, the needle moving towards impatience, the door swings open. And standing there is a gentleman of moderate height, moderate physicality, and for Ben, an unknown, limitless potential for violence. His blonde hair cut short, his piercing blue eyes almost a complete contrast to the sun-kissed tan of his skin. His dark jeans and boots clearly road-worn. His jacket showing all the signs of someone who just about lives in their outerwear, is always in the elements. And the shirt beneath looking equally as well loved and well lived. It has been nearly a year since the last time Ben actually shared space with Ika. And there's still that spirit of wildness about him. Gone are the trappings of being a Gangrel, a Gangrel more leaning towards the finery of the sensates. Gone are the faw imitation suaveness and gentility that marked his behavior for the last few decades. Standing before Ben is the same wild, unimaginable being that issued her into this world of forever night.
Okay.
She's just staring at him like he's a ghost, and she doesn't actually believe he's actually standing there. Raises a brow.
Hey, chica, are those your friends? Or there people that I need to get rid of?
I think I'm hallucinating.
We don't got no time for no mental stuff. Are these your friends or the people I need to get rid of?
They're friends.
Excellent. I need you.
Wow. I never thought I'd heard you say that.
Well, you know I never lie, and there's no reason to beat around the bush. I need you, and I need at least one more of you. We need arms, we need hands. Are you all willing?
I guess I'll join. I'm probably the next best person in this coterie.
Everyone is the next best compared to my child. Let's go.
Do you not notice I'm one hand down right now? She shows him the darkened arm.
Not the best thing that could have happened. Come on, we'll rub some dirt in it. You'll be fine. Let's go.
Alright, Mason, you stay here. And she stands and throws her braids behind her shoulder and follows her sire.
And Eddie following behind Ben.
You would never expect it from Ika. A honest to goodness battle van. It is actually an Econoline service van, but it has been murdered out. The exhaust sounding as if it is a hot rod from the early 50s, the sort that made Ben's heart skip a beat, her blood to run hot It sounds like the sort of engine that is designed to eat the road and ask for more. Its panels, blacked and murdered out as they are designed to repel sound, and you know that there is excessive amounts of weight there, probably armored of some sort. He opens the panel instead of moving to the driver's seat, motioning you both to slide in.
He's going to stop and hug the van first.
Leonardo knows that he is coming along, and that is it. He was not going to get to step on toes, so he's going to wait for Ben to get in first. Very much hearing he is not anything to this man and doesn't really want to, because Ben is bowing to his will to an extent, and he knows that he is not shit in comparison. So he is very much being passive right now.
The man is in fact as much of a beast as one would expect. Getting inside, not having the added cushion of at least 300 to 500 pounds of armor plating to act as shield for your ears. Inside the van, you get a chance to feel the engine vibrate through the entirety of it. The floor has been retrofitted so that it is roughly 4 inches taller than normal, which means there's not much headspace. So when climbing in, you all need to watch your heads as you take seats on the bench seating instead of the row seating that normally accompanies such vans. There are 6 of you, including the driver. Ika climbs in, settling in the middle of you all, crouching on the floor. He hits the back of the driver's seat and they take off. The takeoff is akin to what fighter pilots go through, taking off as fast and hard and high as they can. Ika maintains his balance in the center of the floor. Okay. So here's the thing. I need to catch you all up to speed. You are all friends of the family in one shape, fashion, or form. Be you children of my blood or children of my blood's blood. You are all here because there's a debt that is inherent in association. There's a debt inherent in having the opportunity to live forever. There is also the respect that we, wanderers and outcasts, have amongst ourselves. I'm not sure how much of you all are aware, but in the last few years I've decided to fully let my Anarch flag fly. I have subsumed control of a very small barony in Riverdale. This barony, up until recently, was home to a secret Tremere chantry, a place where they kept dark and dangerous things, unbeknownst to all involved. Each of you have lived no small amount of winters. Each of you understand what immortality could be and know the value inherent in that. So if you all decide, once we alight in Riverdale, to not take me up on my offer and my call for aid, I will understand. But in not doing so, I will treat you like enemies each and every time we meet afterwards, because that's what you will be. We bleed for each other. No matter how long it's been since we've seen each other, we trust in each other. No matter how long it's been since we've seen each other, we are family, and we don't need to be on top of each other. We don't need to brush territories, nor reaffirm our trust and our love with constant communication and constant coddling. What was true is true. And I would never ask anything of you all that I would not ask of myself, and nothing that I would not offer to you at a moment's notice. We are in this life together. The chantry fell. Somehow their seals and their locks on this world were broken, and the spirits and formerly living things they kept there escaped. Those things, having escaped, poisoned the people, poisoned the water, poisoned the emotional connections of the community. Not just the humans, but the animals. These spirits are fell and foul things. Kindred who gave in, who sacrificed themselves to their own greed, to their own beasts, became whites in several days, their humanity draining from them like color. I will not give up on the people who remain. I cannot and I will not allow this evil to continue, and I cannot, unfortunately, do this alone. Of all the kindred that I know, of all the kindred that I would not waste one thought further on, you are all that I have, and to you, I ask your assistance. I ask for your bravery. I ask for your insights. I ask for your skill to kill the unkillable.
Well, Leonetti looks over to Ben, and before confirming, because he's going along because Ben's here. He's just he is an add-on to this and doesn't want to be too hasty. That's how he got a bomb implanted in his chest, and he doesn't want to go through that again. So he's going to be patient.
At her maker and really looks at him this time and takes in the whole entirety of who he is and what she's known him to be, and sees that the softness that there was in him wanting to be close to the Toreador has all but burned away, and that he is very much back to being Gangrel, and smiles with a little bit of a lip quirk and just nods her head to him as, in a sense, to, you have my sword. Rolls her neck and cracks her knuckles.
I guess then Leonetti just nods in agreement that he'll do everything in his power to help.
You hear several grunts, several nods, several silent ascensions, and there's something horribly contagious about that. These are people who are willing to risk their immortality willingly. These are people who feel the connections and responsibility of caring for those connections. These are individuals who, if they cannot live honorably, they don't want to live forever. That's always been the foundation of this particular line of gangrels going back several generations. Ika being the fountainhead for most of those in this vehicle is a sign that underneath all of the effete charms and the attempt to remain fashionable, there's never been a lack of that drive, a lack of that filial piety one to the next. Even in the midst of trying to meet the burden of fashionability, even trying to meet the burden of social discourse and warfare, there was never a lack of intent to do the most honorable thing possible, to bleed for those that matter, to fight for those that matter, to throw your all behind your word. And in this moment, this very, very short moment, as you all somehow manage to eat up the road as if it doesn't exist, as if you have come as close to teleportation as is possible. The velocity of the van is significantly high enough that if they were to hit anything, it would be obliterated. There is just under 3 tons of weight, not counting the passengers in this van, moving at roughly 97 miles per hour. Now, for those of you who don't drive the expressways from Indiana to Illinois, there's a good portion of it that is almost straight away, but even that is filled with potholes the size of dreams. Even that has curves that pop out of nowhere, and while the landscape doesn't change all that much, metered out by the odd occasional random storm over the lake, and it being mostly discarded areas of civilization, barren whole spaces where the wild has reclaimed humanity and civilization, where factories are slowly crumbling back into nature. And yet the van moves between vehicles as if it is 2,000 pounds lighter and 11 feet smaller in terms of sheer volume. Yet the driver, popping bubblegum and checking their mirrors, wheels the vehicle as if it was a small, agile motorcycle, the whole while jamming along to whatever is pumping into their head via their earpods, their AirPods and their headphones, because there are several headphones being charged through the lighter in the dash. This connects to a hub, and there are several different headphones plugged in, several different headphone cases. There are a full case of energy drinks, completely drunken, and there are more on the seat beside them. In a normal group such as this, there'd be conversations and tests of dominance and the occasional odd joke, the banter of people getting to know each other. Instead, there's a few cuts of eyes, a few second-long, deep, meaningful contact between one eye to the next. But other than that, and the sound of the van eating up the road, it is otherwise silent. Moments later, the acceleration that you all experience as the vehicle moved across the road comes to a stop, a sudden stop, and everybody rocks in their seats. Those unprepared for it slide or bump into the person next to them. And the driver looks back over their shoulder, lips twisted into a quirky smile. And Nika moves toward the side panel opening the van. You're not sure what you expected when he said his barony, his people, but you didn't expect what amounts to the heart of the wild in an urban space. There is more foliage growing wild from the sidewalks and the parcels of land just off the sidewalk than you have ever seen in an urban space outside of a designated park. There are trees which show their age by how gnarled and twisted they are as they reach towards the sky with stooped shoulders. There are buildings that have clearly been in occupation since the late 20s and maybe even the late 1800s. The cars on the street are the rough and tumble sort of vehicles you expect on someone's farm property. The 78 Olds Calais that's sitting there, the only regal vehicle in sight. The others, trucks, jeeps, and the rough sort of tumble vehicles that you could take off-road and not worry about breaking anything. The area here in Riverdale looks like the Illinois that Northern Illinois forgot. Back to its barely urban roots, back to its lack of a metropolitan identity. It is the space where if you did not know better, you are sure that there would be hunters and blinds waiting for stag to make their way across their path to take that shot. And then the gurgling and babbling of the river not too far off. You can hear it even now as it makes its way through this portion. Ika moves across a field covered in greenery that slowly died due to the season, but you know will be growing back the moment spring even thinks about arriving and reaching the heights that it is barely being contained at. The grass is tall enough to brush against your knee. The weeds mixed amongst them tall enough to reach your waist and maybe your chest. And he moves through the space along a path that doesn't actually exist. You only know that there was a path here based on his footfalls and watching the way that the weeds bend away from him as he moves.
Interesting.
Walk takes about 6 minutes. And you find yourself at an abandoned factory. You can smell the suffocating lack of any of the modern accoutrements. Most of the windows are missing or broken. The air feels much like it does outside, though 3 degrees warmer, sometimes 4 depending on the way the breeze hits. Inside, in the center of this space, this hollowed out remains as a table that is made of all cold pressed iron, the sort of thing that they'd have on a factory floor when going over plans and making jigs and that sort of thing. On the table is a map of Riverdale, specifically outlining the area in which you are part of. He moves to the table. You have spies and agents out in the field, others of us who are working to repel these beings. I'm not sure you have all seen what the white can do to one of us when we are not paying attention. We will not give them that opportunity. There's a nest under Riverdale, a sewer system to which they have been hiding. We will head into the sewer. We will destroy them one to all, to the last of them. And when we are done, we will find the being that is helping this to happen. The Tremere, the warlocks, those witchy-eared bastards have lent what aid they could to corral their spirits, but in the last few weeks it seems as if they've lost strength and intention. I cannot afford to lose focus. I cannot afford to allow this to fester and grow more. So, you, and he points to 3 others, will head here, and he points to a portion on a map where you're going to meet a friend of the family. I won't bother you to try to pronounce her full name. Simply call her Tao. She will guide you to your hunting area, and you will destroy everything that she determines as an enemy. Off with you. She's expecting you. It's only a 15-minute jog. You should be there shortly. You two are with me. And he points to you, Ben, and you, Leonetti. We will head, and he points and outlines the area. This is the central hub for the sewer system. It is where we will be able to access and move into the tunnels beneath the city. We will find this nest, and we'll destroy it, and we'll find the source. And in doing so, we may very well be able to pull victory from this. First, you will need to be refortified.
Watching all of this go on, and she remembers the name Tao from that night at Silks, and kind of smirks. When he says refortified, she head tilts. What does that mean?
Oh, you are damaged. We can't let you go into battle as damaged as you are. And while your friends are clearly able to heal you permanently, I will be able to heal you temporarily. And he bites into his palm on his left hand and wills the vitae forward. It is not much and will not last longer than perhaps the week's end, but it should be enough to get us through this. And he moves towards you, squeezing the vitae so that it begins to run freely. And just before the drop flies from his hand, he holds his hand over your mouth. This sweet vitae that calls to your soul is there. Do you open your mouth? Do you take in that vitae? Do you take in nearly from the vein the strength of some other kindred?
She's hesitant for a moment. She's seriously looking at him like, I don't know about this, but knowing that she would be a hindrance to him trying to fight half injured, she closes her eyes and takes what is offered.
There is an immediate shock to the system. Not because it's the first time that Ben has tasted Kindred Vitae stretched from the tap. No, it's the realization of the things that she has denied herself her first 5-10 years, when the opportunity for her to drink from the tap was not as prohibitive. When he visited her the end of her first winter, her first spring, when he appeared up out of the darkness, having already broken the rules as much as he had, and had someone keep watch on her. Him appearing to his child is such a rarity amongst the Gangrel as to be non-existent. It doesn't happen. Most Gangrel, after their first winter, are usually watched by their sire from a distance. And when they are wrong, or when they inadvertently do something far too monstrous, the sire leaves them, sure that they've made a mistake. Ika popped up out of nowhere, her first spring, congratulating her for her survival's instinct, congratulating her for heeding the warnings and the markings left by her, congratulating her for taking the hard way so that she learns from the only teacher of any real value, experience. And here, where her independence, her call to freedom, her call to find her own way has become more than just an inclination, has become her life. Here, she's able to taste the strength inherent in that blood, the very vitae that courses through her immortality, the fount that her river begins at. And it's good. It tastes like freedom. It tastes like ferocity. It tastes like the distilled essence of independence. Leonetti. Over the years that you've been dead, over your time in the land of the damned, proffering your skills as a gun for hire, as a man to be rented, there's certain inclinations that develop, certain will that settled in to hunt the monsters, to be less of a monster by taking strength from the monsters. And his blood smells divine. His vitae smells as if it is a 7-course meal that will refortify you for God knows how long. It is the distilled essence of strength. It is. And you pause in thought and action as your mouth begins to salivate. It's an autonomic response, even amongst the kindred. When food is there, it is to be eaten. And for Leonetti, that's food. That strength is not impossible to turn away from, but it is very close to it. And you realize that you're staring a little too long. You should realize that your mouth is salivating. And while no one else can notice, because your mouth is closed, it does feel as if everyone who is here can easily notice how hungrily you stare.
He does not want to start a fight that he knows he will not win. Because, yeah, he does not want to attack, and he knows that he knows, yes, food, but then something deeper in him spears. He remembers just the power before him, and while hunters always wish for prey, he is an animal at heart, and they know that food, unless starved on the brink of death, is not worth risking your life to such a degree. And he painstakingly reels in his desire, thinking about some of his most delicious meals that he has ever had of memory, trying to focus his hunger to something else as to distract him from this delicious meal in front of him.
Would you be so kind as to roll composure and etiquette?
Composure and etiquette. Okay, so that is... let's hope that I get good. That is... Fuck. Is that enough? No, it's not. I'm dead. Fuck.
There are moments in our lives when we know that the tables have turned, that what was once believed to be an automatic victory seems destined to be an automatic failure, when the odds are stacked so high and so strong that there seems no way through it, that the only thing we can do is wallow in the moment of failure. And Leonetti's mind immediately begins to catastrophize this moment until he realizes that both Ika and Ben's eyes are closed in the moment. There is more than the physical sharing of the vitae happening. There is a connection one to the next. And that he can feel the electric charge of it as blood calls to blood. And while he doesn't have the sight of the spiritual, he doesn't have the ability to see beyond this world, he doesn't have the ability to tap into the monstrousness that is never more than an eye blink away from our lives, he feels the power inherent. And while Ben's hand does not heal, does not mend, the charred blackness no longer crawls up her arm towards her heart and towards her head. It is frozen, and for the briefest of moments, that inky blackness looks as if it is a wolf, looks as if it is the howl of the wild itself. And it's halted. The color lightens. The darkness is still there, but is being held at bay. And is being warred upon by the power of the blood. Her arthritic constriction of her hand disappears. And while you can't prove it, you know what you see. In that moment, the muscles in her arms, the muscles in her neck seem to grow denser, as if there are extra cords of sheer strength being applied to them internally. And then as she opens her eyes, just the briefest glint and glimmer of something ember just beneath her dark brown eyes.
Okay.
I think we're ready to go.
Yes.
I did not thank you for your friendship with my child.
It was no problem. It is an honor.
I'm proud to hear you say so. My child shows their friends and associates very well. We need to move. The night is waning, moonlight is disappearing, and we have things to destroy.
You are speaking my language.
As you head off antelope, his pace grows in speed until he's jogging at nearly a full-out run as he covers ground, as he moves with the surety of an alpha wolf, as he seems more bestial by the moment as you all move further away from the signs of civilization. He said you guys were heading to a hub, a central access point, and lo and behold, as you break free of the tall grass and trees that have overgrown much of this portion of Riverdale, that is exactly what you are heading towards. Except for on the map, it looked a small manhole-sized thing. It did not look to be the mouth of madness that it is. It very much is, once you cross 3, 4, 10 train tracks, that in the center of it all, there's this shed-like structure made of stonework, built up so that it looks very much like a viaduct. Inside that viaduct are a series of doors, old and made of rusted metal, iron probably, but it's hard to say. It could very well be steel or something else. It is dark and crusted in this orange film that you know all too dearly from having been in Gary. finding it here in the center of a train yard is weird. What sort of structure could hold the weight of several trains passing overhead? What sort of hell are you entering into when such an industrial-sized structure is where you need to enter?
As he takes out his pistol, he prepares for the worst. As he looks around, trying to make sure, as he observes around, just making sure that there's nothing sneaking around.
It is far worse. It is far worse than you could possibly have imagined. You prepared for entering into the old cast-off spooky sewers that you once faced in Indiana. This is that only 100 times worse. When you enter into the large sealed door, you realize that the metal working of this door is 1.5 feet thick. The walls themselves are 3 feet of reinforced concrete. And as the door closes behind you, the wane service lights that are on shows this place to be a massive stairwell into the depths of hell. The darkness of the void sits before you. The stairwell that you are on is made to carry down machinery of significant weight and size. It's wide enough for 5 men to walk side by side down each step. It is supported by columns 5 and 6 feet thick. The steps themselves are corrugated metal thick enough that when you step on them, you don't hear any reverberation of the metal giving under your weight. And the stairs descend 2 stories down. You can hear the trickle of water echoing off the walls. The service lights, the emergency lights that are used to service this portion of hell, have a sickly green hue to them. They're long lasting, as only the light bulbs when they first were invented lasted. It's proven that on low energy, most of the bulbs not actively destroyed during that time could last almost indefinitely. And it's clear that these bulbs were created mostly by hand, as those original bulbs were. And the dull hum of electricity is the only accompaniment to the staccato drip, drip of moisture easing down the walls. Many people don't realize that not only was Chicago and by extension Riverdale the first city to mass produce light bulbs and create the suburbs themselves, it's also one of the first cities to, following New York's influence, build an extensive network of tunnels. In Chicago, these are far worse. There is a tunnel that empties into nothing. There's a runoff to contain the width and breadth of the entirety of the Chicago River. And Riverdale tried to follow suit. Many of the deeper sewer tunnels connect with the furthest extreme of the Chicago one. There are ways that you can travel from here to Wakanda, Illinois. Though doing so would probably cost you your sanity. It is possible.
should probably have more regard for my own sanity, but what the hell, let's do it.
We will follow this main path until it diverges twice. There are going to be 4 connective points that we will pass till we get to the main junctures. 3 main junctures, and we should be in the center of our portion of this maze. From there, it should be easy enough to follow their skittering.
Paying attention, listening to the directions as closely as she can, but in the meanwhile, she's focusing on the ends of her hands and trying to grow her claws into weapons, because they didn't bring any machetes or weapons like they did last time fighting the lights. So all she'll have is strength claw.
How long has it been since Ben attempted to use her feral weapons?
It's a long time. Like, she's been in owl form more than anything, but she doesn't usually do that hybrid thing of being human with claws, because it's either one or the other typically.
And so that brings a small curiosity. Would you be so kind as to go ahead and make that rouse roll for me? Because as Ben concentrates on her hands, well, normally the blood manifests, causing her fingernails to grow and lengthen and change into blades, for lack of better words. Never before has the texture of her skin changed to be that of the owl's claws and lower legs. The texture of her skin takes on the consistency of an owl's talons. She doesn't lose any fingers, but the nails blacken and curl. The skin hardens to survive the elements, and so that blood doesn't cling to it. And in this moment, it is almost indistinguishable, her fingers and feral weapons to those of her in her owl form.
There's a mild moment of freak out as she sees her skin, but shrugs and takes it in stride. The beast snickering behind her mind.
The strength of the blade is in its sheath. The skill of the swordsman is in their restraint. The truth of evil is not in the absence of good. It is in misapplication of direction, allowing the whims and wants to take control. You've tasted the strength. He will turn his back. You can take all and more from him. Be ashamed not to take him, his strength, and his barony for your own. Be free of everyone else's concerns.
Curls back from her fangs and shakes her head. She's clearing her thoughts and refocuses herself into what they have to do. It is time to hunt. He is our alpha. We will hunt.
As you all descend further into the darkness, and all semblance of time falls away. The constant drip of moisture falling into pools of water, and the soft scuffle and sliding of your steps as you move along causes a sort of meditative weariness, a mindless heeding of the call to battle, a preparation that causes the muscles to vibrate with unspent energy and aggression. You all pass the juncture silently, and he pauses and waits, crouching, listening. And then you start to hear it amidst the drip, 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 as the odds scuttle. Off in the distance, since your time down here, since your minutes, which had turned into half full and a little bit more of time, the sounds of the environment began to be synonymous with just here, just with now, and that subtle, silent, and the skittering causes the nerves to sit on edge because you're not sure how far away it is. Having learned in your time that the sounds echo off of each wall, having learned in your time that the drip that you've heard is miles from your current location, having learned that sound travels in very weird ways when there isn't light to interfere with it. Are they just around the corner? Are they behind you?
You know he wasn't with us before we went into the
Yeah, I wasn't.
last time. Okay, so what Ben is going to do is very carefully lean towards him and whisper, "To watch our 6 and 7s and 8s. These things can crawl on the ceiling. They're faster than they look. And the only way to make sure that is they must dust or melt. If they have not dusted or melted, then they are still alive and you need to keep going until it's dead."
Got it, thanks.
Is there anything else you all are doing in that mental preparation with one another?
I don't think that I have anything to prepare. Except, like, get my gun ready to shoot.
Oh yeah, she's also gonna tell him that. Blades might be better if you have them. Guns are useful, but only so much. It's close quarters, and they will surround you. So blades are better.
I probably have a knife, and I can use it decently.
As you all talk amongst yourself, whispering so that your voices don't carry, you watch Yika's back as he, crouched though he is, his ears pointed down the tunnel, down the space ahead of you, into that darkness that seems so thick and heavy. You're sure that it'll weigh you down. It'll cause you to crouch. It'll make moving forward even harder, carrying that excess weight. He listens to the scratching and scrabbling and the low growl rolling along the walls. And he stands up quickly, almost as if he was shocked by something. And he looks to you all, and the first time that he's actually bothered to turn around and see that you two are still there, you realize that his eyes are reflecting all of the wane green light around you all. His eyes seem to glow with the power of their own heat. The amber of a wolf's eyes are there, heated from within by some dark, baleful fire. And his warm, ocean blue eyes are nothing like the eyes that exist there now. They know that we're here for some strange reason. We will probably have to split up. You two stay together. There's this tunnel here to my right, forward, or the one there to the left. Which one will you take?
Does Ben remember their scent from last time?
That dry, papery dead.
Yeah, because she would have committed that to memory. Which tunnel smells more like it?
That's the problem, which means sometimes to roll your wits and awareness. Shouldn't be possible. But there is a fetid, cool breeze moving through the tunnels, not caused by your own movement, but by the motion of water. And it carries with it that moist, almost miasmic river scent. With that scent coming from all three of the tunnels is also mingled into it that dry, papery, moist, mucky scent that lets you know that something fetid and dead exists. Neither tunnel smelling more like that horrible stench, but none of them smelling less. It should mean that each of those tunnels lead to the same place. It should mean that each of those tunnels eventually intersect again. But part of the paranoid lizard thoughts at the back of Ben's head makes you think that each of them hold a significant danger of a white's nest. As you all decide to take the middle road, straight on until daylight, straight through hell, the only way out is to keep moving. And all of those epitaphs that summon up the bravery, rouse the blood, and lead men to oftentimes their slaughter. As you all head or begin moving, he pauses you all with a knock. 3. Simple 3. Every 2 minutes, we should be able to hear each other. When you stop knocking, I know that you have met contact. And when I stop knocking, you know that I've met contact. And it gives you an idea as to how far we have traveled. Just in case. And he takes the path to the right. As you all head into the dark, further daring death to kick open your door and invite itself to your tea party, the scritching and scrabbling grows in intensity. The sounds of animals a hunt grow louder. There's not more than 12 knocks on when you stop hearing Ika's knock. There's no more than 15 knocks on when your own stop, when you reach and meet contact. When hunting whites before in the company of others, there was a certain camaraderie and a certain bravery that to be had by a sheer determination of focus. Being as it is only two of you all, there is moments where the truth of your situation overwhelms the sense of bravado, overwhelms the inherent monstrosity of being undead. This is such a moment. 15 knocks on, you enter into what could be a runoff or spill chamber. The gangways raised above the 6 to 10 feet deep pool of water. Around the edges, looking as if they are egg sacs of flesh stuck to the walls. Are the remains of human, bipedal creatures. Some 4, some 3, because it was clear that limbs were removed. Skulls and half decomposed bodies, and those egg sacs, which are literally the waste of flesh. What happens when a predator is so filled with protein that the only thing left is to excrete it from either end? And as you all know that these things are kindred, the excretion is the vomited up mass of flesh and muscle that could not be consumed, or at least not held. There isn't any stomach acids to break down such things, not in the normal kindred physiology. And so all of that mass, all of those wild and animalistic bites against their enemies and against their prey end up stretched out. And there's so much of it here that it sticks and clings to the walls in various places, mixed with the bones and viscera of formerly living things. And the disease of whitedom, of dropping all semblance of humanity, has reached a new level and mutated. Because the scritching and scrabbling that you expected to be whites, having given themselves over completely and totally to their animalistic nature, coming from the colony, the cluster, the clouder of rabid undead felines. You see them clawing and crawling up the wall and fighting, warring and biting and nipping at each other. But instead of the meow and meows and hisses of normal living felines, these are the guttural growls of beasts 3 and 4 times the size they should be. And because of their state of undeath, the normal breathing and scenting and hunting by smell isn't their strong suit. However, sight is, and all of these glowing red eyes turn in your direction.
Despite the fact knowing that the sound isn't a thing, it's exciting. She means simply that.
I agree. Like a switch being thrown, that massive waiting that these monstrous, half-dead, manged, and desiccating, necrotic-fleshed felines charge.
Leonetti takes a few shots at one of the closer charging.
Fleetness and duck and dodge while slashing, hopefully rending them to pieces so that they are finally dead.
Then would you be so kind as to roll your dexterity and firearms? Then would you be so kind as to roll your strength and brawl?
Yep.
Yes. Something uplifting about victory. There's something viscerally rewarding about coming out on top of a situation. There is something inherently uplifting about it. There's something that triggers some hidden portion of every being that exists. And kindred are not immune to that surge of adrenaline and that surge of immediate endorphin release when it looks as if the matter is won, when it looks as if fate has turned in your direction and has given you the nod, the thumbs up, the attaboy, the attagirl that says, this is your moment. This is your moment. The guns sound like the 4th of July. The hissing and growling die by the second. And as you all crest the wave of the hundreds of them that are pouring forth with every intention to divest you of your continued immortality, there is a moment when there are less charging you than when it had begun. When the fur, the mangy, sickly, dead fur and flesh flying off, dust, eyeballs bursting, guts spilling, the mournful cry of animalistic dead falling away. And you fire and reload and hack and slash until there is nothing left but spent vitae. Until there's nothing left but a pile of various states of dead and dusting, formerly unalive, white-like felines. How large they got, how wild they were, how obviously dead they were, was a testament to the sheer perversity of the powers of the blood. Cats as large on all fours as to reach up to your navel. Cats as strong enough to knock you back 3, 4, 5 feet. Claw strikes determined and destined to rip through anything moving to make things stop. The claws strikes along the masonry walls about you, leaving scores and chunks missing. It is an apocalypse level event of death, carnage. And spent and breathing hard despite your undead state, you all arrive on the opposite side, still holding on to your semblance of life. Behind you, the rack and ruin, letting you know that the tables have been turned. The matter has been escalated. This is no longer simply keeping your word. There's something that angers you about knowing that such things were possible. The birds were one thing that was clear, active, meddling with the natural state of things and training for viciousness. The monstrosity of the kindred nature at work. But this is something else. This is an unnatural bent, a step forward in the evolutionary effects of your blood. And it's 44 after the hour. I'll see you guys back here at 54. We'll take a quick 10 minutes and then dive back into the hell that is our Season 3 premiere.
Getting interesting.
Still acting weird?
No, that's much clearer.
Clear is good. Leonetti, are you back yet?
Yeah, I'm here.
Excellent. So when we last left our intrepid adventurers, when we left the coterie at large, they had massacred their way through a clouder from hell, a cluster of felines, neither alive but refusing to die. Felines possessed of a feralness not even the living variety could match. Their clear, not only inhumanity, but their clear bestial nature worn on them, and having worn away their fur, skin, and various sundry parts that marked them as fully feline. Surviving the exchange, would each of you all be so kind as to handle a small bit of bookkeeping and jot down 3 superficial that you all will have on your sheet? So that's 1 based on your fortitude and what have you. In the exchange, you all massacred the entire mass of them, not without taking your own cuts and scrapes and bruises along the way. In death, much as in life, there is a certain virulent disease that cats carry. It's called cat scratch fever. The undead variety of it showing its signs where the claws scrape the undead flesh of your being. It burns. It sizzles. There is a eating away of the necrotized flesh of your being where the claws scraped and where the fangs bit. Having survived it, you can imagine only what that level of contagion would do to the living. How quickly that wound, which has no living red blood cells to feed upon, that those wounds that don't have the white blood cells attacking it, that wound that burns even your undead being, imagine it being inflicted upon the living. Imagine what pain and torment that would follow in its wake. That realization as to what these things are and how badly it would have affected the community as a whole is no small realization. And as you all hear, breathing heavy and soaked in Fealty sweat, you know that Ika has survived whatever stopped his knocking. Those 3 small knocks, the symbol that, the sign that there is hope yet and that the monsters will not win. Not while each and any of you all continue to draw your undead breaths. Onward, ever onward, you all march into the green-tinged darkness of the world of night that is now your potential forever home. Several questions about the remainders of your coterie lie unsettled. Namely, Leonetti's never really thought about it. Never really put it together. He was never really concentrating on sheer numbers. He agreed to help the humans, to stop the monsters that he feels that he has become and that he has come to know. He didn't expect them to not care about the loss of life, the collateral damage. But as that thought has already settled in, he contemplates what further horrors awaits him. There's a realization he had just enough bullets to drop them all and leave with empty clips. That doesn't happen, because even now his clips are, the amount of clips that he has on him, he has roughly a third left. And if the levels of difficulty increase, there's a good chance that before the battle is over, he won't have any. Or there's a good chance that the right shot at the right moment would leave him with still a third of his clips left. How is it that in an engagement with humans with slower reflexes, in an engagement with humans, living, breathing humans, he was taxed to the point of needing to exhaust the entirety of his surplus? And just his surplus. He didn't need to pick up more bullets. He didn't need to reload. He didn't need to use any of their weapons. He was able to rescue Mason and escape exactly empty. What other manipulations did he fall prey to? What other manipulations did Mason fall prey to? And as the darkness of those thoughts beset Leonetti, they round a curve, because the straightforward path they were taking leads them further into the bowels of Riverdale, further away from the light, further into the darkness, where the emergency lights are spread further and further apart, until the thin light barely allows them to see more than 10 feet in front of them. And they find it the large, bloated, mingled and mangled flesh, hanging like melted wax from its skeletal frame, its eyes large holes of inky blackness pinpricked with reflective angry green fire. His fangs extended, twisted and curling, row upon row of sharp, small, needle-like teeth behind its fang. Claws, broken and chipped, yet reflecting a strange, bestial sharpness. And instead of the lungless, airless of the other whites, it is a roar of aggression, a roar of dominance, a roar declaring that this moment, all that you are, you stand to lose.
Signal.
One way to find out.
I give the knock that we found something, but then I repeat it, meaning definitely head this way if you can.
Anything you were saying?
No. I don't know. I wasn't saying anything. Yeah.
It charges.
Bro. Let's lay some bullets into it.
Sidestep it and get behind it so that it has to choose who it's going to attack. I'm hoping that Leonetti's gunfire will keep it busy in the front while I get it from behind.
Okay. And then would you be so kind as roll your dexterity and firearms, and as you're actually attempting to dodge, Ben, would you be so kind as roll your dexterity, in athletics? I rolled in the wrong place. Oh well. Sorry about that. Okay. Well. 2 plus 5 is 7. That we can't do to you guys. So we will just do the. Oh, I have no choice. Then you attempt to go up and over to avoid the slash that is moving with the flapping jowly slap of the desiccating, melty flap of its flesh. The claws bite into your thighs, leaving a score of marks across them, dropping you back down next to Leonetti as the claws strike him full force in the chest. Would both of you all be so kind as to take 7 superficial, please?
7 superficial what?
as the claws leave scores into your dead flesh across your chest, and Score bends legs across her thighs as she attempted to go up and over to pincer it between the two of you. Its speed is surprising, its strength even more so, and the bite of its claws causes significant damage.
Okay, so we took 7 what?
Superficial damage.
I think I might be down.
What's your total health levels?
My total health levels is 5, but I took a little bit of damage from the bird. And I don't know if I recovered it.
Yes, you have.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, because we have
Okay, we did?
with the birds.
Yes.
We have recovered from it then?
Yes.
Okay, then I'm not down. It's overdone mine. It's gone over my 5 points, and I'm in the other form of damage now. If I remember that correctly.
Yeah, 5 2, that's 2 aggravated, and 3 superficial, filling up your health track. The wounding is grievous. The wounding is nearly as much as when Leonetti faced down an explosion when he was beset by a cadre of officers attempting to end his undead existence. This is as grievous wounded as he has been in his entire time being dead. This creature has every intention of killing and draining and in short, ending your existence.
Well, if we can't get around him, we're gonna have to go the fuck through him, so claws out, and she's going for as much damage as she possibly can.
Having been knocked back by such a grievous wound, what is Leonetti attempting to do?
He is going to try to backpedal a little to avoid, try to get himself out of this and get away from this guy and shoot a few more bullets at him.
Okay. Strength and brawl, bend, and dexterity and firearms for Leonetti. Any willpower?
Yeah, so
Okay. 1 plus 5 is 6. So, in the exchange, the thunderous collision of claw versus claw and dead flesh as Leonetti dances back just outside of combat range, managing to somehow get off enough shots to cause the beast to suffer from the impact of slugs tearing into its dead flesh, peppering its skin with the remnants of spent shells. That's 6 superficial, Ben. And what's your strength?
My strength, right?
No, Ben, you're firing. So, and you're using your 9mm?
I'm strength 4.
Yes.
Okay, so that's 3, the outcome of 1, that's 4. And your strength is 4. And your claws are 2, that's 6. So outcome of 0, 6, and 8. Alright, so Ben, that's 6 superficial for you as you meet the beast claw to claw in a visceral exchange that can only be defined as momentous. Your claws biting into its flesh, its claws biting into yours, and Leonetti peppering it, somehow managing to miss you and hit it, its jowly wax-like dead flesh flapping and flying off of it in chunks as the bullets explode through it. Your claws revealing the chest and still beating heart and lungs beneath the mass of dead flesh. You realize that in the vitae soaking and flowing around your claws and you, that it has somehow managed to rouse, and this sickly greenish blue dead skin is as close to living as it could be. And that is far too close. And not close enough for it to pass anywhere in the world as anything but monstrous, as if its time down here has infected it with a evil that could be felt. Above the stench of the rancid fetid water flowing past you, above the stench of the dead feral white-like felines you've left in your wake, above the moisture clinging, causing the very air to feel as if your lungs that you don't use are crawling with mold. And as it staggers back from you, its pain evident, its fury clear. It does the unthinkable. It tenses, preparing to leap. It spins on its heel, beginning to fly in fear for its continued existence. You can hear the of its flesh trailing behind it. What do you both do?
As bad as this kid gets, we cannot let it get away.
Yeah.
And she's gonna.
I agree with Ben. Leonetti agrees with Ben, and he chases after it, but he keeps some distance just so that this thing.
You all.
We're gonna give it space so it don't turn and charge backwards, but we're gonna give.
You all follow it into the sickly green darkness of the underworld that has now become your home and could become your crypt. You follow it into the dark. You follow it down one hall, turning next down the next. You follow it until the very ends of its exhaustion begin to hit. Its trailing flesh doesn't flap as quickly. And yet, somehow, in its bestial flight from pain, its immediate instinctual rush into the darkness, seeking for some place to lay and lick its wounds, it finds a dead end. It finds a offshoot tunnel that doesn't connect with another. You hear it splashing on the wall, looking for a way out. Its desperation clear as they're scraping along the walls, it's looking for a small crevice or some hidden portion.
With that, knowing it can't quite get away, I don't trust that it didn't lead us into a trap, though. So I'm gonna give it enough space so that we can harry and attack it, but not get hurt ourselves.
Yeah, luckily I have food. So I can shoot from a range. So I also am wary of the trap, so I keep my distance and fire on this thing.
You all ease close enough so that you can have unfettered access to the creature. You ease close enough so that you are sure that it is on its own, that it doesn't have any means of escape. And as your footfalls draw closer, like the coming of death itself, you hear the most unsettling thing you've ever heard. You hear it talking to itself. You hear it talking to itself in the voice of a small child. Oh no, they're coming. Oh God, please help me, Mommy. Please help me, Mommy. Help me out. Oh my God, they're closer. And knowing that the creature, the monstrosity that you faced, was tall enough to meet your eyes evenly, knowing that the monstrosity that you faced was a combinant form of mangled flesh, knowing the monstrosity that you faced by any definition of gauging its age would place it somewhere in its late 50s, 60s. The sweet and innocent young child's voice echoing from it is enough to start a mental panic with the dissonance therein. Easing closer, expecting it to be a trap, or it throwing its voice somehow, you realize that the voice is coming from it. That the child's voice is it. At least as far as you can gauge, until it turns and you realize that its voice, its mouth on its head is growling and angry, and a low-issued threat to come no closer. But coming from it is a sweet, innocent, young child's voice begging for forgiveness. You try not to look, you try not to seek out the voice. You know that there should be someone to protect those who can't defend themselves, some small glimmer of the humanity you both once had. And then you see it in that mangled mess of flesh as a small child's face, and its mouth is moving, and the voice is coming from it.
Trinity looks first horror struck him as for a second he sees his daughter. Then he, as quick as it emerged, gritted his teeth, took in a breath, looked on to the monstrous abomination, and decided
she is freaked out. Her eyes squeezing shut for a minute. She is trying to push the sight and sound of that child out of her head and get anywhere but there. But in that, she's looking at the ground, looking around them, checking for like some rebar or something like that construction left over, something she can pick up and like use as a weapon, because this is too much. she has to end its suffering because there's no way she can let it live.
You find just a thing, a broken piece of pipe that you pull from the wall. It's rust clear. It feels dirty just holding it because it's both somehow slicky and tacky with rust and slime and mold. As Leonetti fires and you drive home that piece of broken metal, that destructed statement of what this space does to things, you realize that the trap wasn't because forces would swarm into the area blocking your path of egress. The trap wasn't anything as tactical as that. The trap being the moment that you drive home that broken piece of pipe and Leonetti's last shot ends the cries of pain from the creature. The growling stops and it sags under the weight of its bulk, melting into a gelatinous goo before your very eyes. The trap is that you all are far enough into this maze of corridor after corridor that even if you had, much like the heroes of old, carried a piece of twine tied to the entrance, you would not be able to find your way back. The twists and turns, the headlong rush into the darkness. You are so far from the main junctures. You are in a different area. It doesn't take long for you to figure that out by the walls being non-masonry. It's something black and almost porous. The slick and slime sticks to it, yes, but not in the same manner of it dripping from the ceilings. The constant drip that had been your accompaniment, you don't hear. You don't hear the every 120 seconds to 3 knocks. You don't hear the rush of water, and you don't feel the faint breeze you did just moments before.
Leonetti looks to Ben and said, "Oh, we fucked."
Don't panic. Don't panic. We can find a way out, even if it's not the way we came in.
I mean, eventually we'll find a way out. We are. Though I am worried how long it's gonna take. Oh, eventually.
Anika's words comes back to you. Chicago, following New York's lead, has a series of tunnels that even from here you could reach Wakanda, Illinois if you followed them. You know that Riverdale is roughly 20 miles from the center of Chicago. So from Madison and State to where Riverdale is roughly 20 plus miles. And Wakanda is roughly 30 miles north, closer to 40 from Chicago. That's easily 60, maybe 70 miles of subterranean world. 60 to 70 miles of darkness everywhere one looked. 60 to 70 miles of God knows what, inhabited by God knows whom.
Take a deep breath and look at Fealty. There is nothing for it but to try to head back. So let's do what we can. If we find a way out at any point, we take it no matter where the fuck it is, and we find out where we are from there.
I agree.
Between the two of you, who has the highest survival?
I suppose.
What was
How
that?
much was it?
Who has the highest survival dots?
Like I said, I'm -2. I don't know what. There's a.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because I would have like 2, maybe. I would have like 1, maybe 2 at most. So.
Okay. But you both have survival, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so what's your total resolve plus survival?
It is 4 for me.
Okay, with you both having survival.
It is probably 5 for me.
Alright, so Leonetti, would you be so kind as to roll your resolve plus survival plus 1 for Ben assisting. Get as high as you can. When you have forever, time isn't usually measured by minutes and
I
seconds.
missed 1. I missed 1 dice.
When you have forever, time isn't measured in minutes or seconds or even hours. Usually, it's usually measured from one social movement to the next because you have the entirety of forever. It's a mindset that settles in with the ennui of time passing along, of the seconds piling up until they could drive someone mad. However, in a situation such as this, surrounded by the darkness and sounds of death and carnage, and fighting every step of the way through the natural fear, knowing that there are other creatures here, you did not reach the nest. You did not find the center of them all. You found the many beasts and monsters in this labyrinth. You didn't find the nest, the central home, the beating heart of all of this evil. At least you thought you hadn't. Minutes turned to hours, hours turned to lifetimes, and right at the point where a certain madness, a space madness begins to settle over you, but the idea that with as many miles of tunnels, the ever-descending nature of many of them, there's a good chance you might end up disappearing down here forever anon. And then there's a ladder. A rusted ladder, which is a little more than rungs driven into this dark black, almost porous metal. And as you all take your chance together, climbing the rungs one after the other, till you reach the top of what feels like a welded-on iron manhole cover. You push and strain against it, calling out through the small holes in it, until it frees with your effort because you refuse to accept that darkness will be your end, that this moldy, discarded bit of the modern world will be your tomb. The cover gives, and you feel before you hear it, the bass. Followed by the scratchy, tinny, electronic noises that passes as music. You smell sweat, aqua de jour, and more axe than you thought there could possibly ever be. Pulling yourself up and out of the muck and mire. There's a stairwell to your left. The room you are in is lit from the crack beneath the door. Outside the door, you can see bits and pieces of flashing different colored lights that would be at any nightclub anywhere in the world, and the movement of bodies, causing the light to bend and flicker even more than it already is. You can hear the electronic music backed by a bass riff that is clearly from some hip-hop origin, the two melding together. And you can hear the steady, overwhelming murmur of people trying to talk over the music and the clink of glasses. And the fact that you smell like death warmed over and look like it's forgotten adopted child is of no concern, because beyond that door there are God knows how many people indulging in God knows what. The only question of this moment, and the only question that matters, is if you are going to go through that door.
Okay. I don't think you should. I don't. It's not appetizing to him, at least. And he knows even if he goes in, he's not going to be able to like eat or do something. He'll attract attention. He won't be able to get out or kill everyone else, or at least kill everyone in there and get out. He doesn't want to go through the door. But he first looks over to the bin and asks, "You want to go through that door?"
Ben looks at him. Do you want to go back in the tunnel?
Touche. Let's go.
I mean, maybe there's a back door out of here, but I'm not going back down there.
I agree. Let's go. Get out there.
Reluctantly.
Ben is going to make sure to put the manhole cover back though, because she does not want what's down in the basement or in the sewers following them up into the space.
You all brave the door. And there's nothing more risky. It's literally a choice between Sela and Charybdis. And you open the door, but you see a rave mid-action. You see the people so zooted out of their minds that this is the best night of their life, one that they will never forget, holding nothing but moments they will never remember. The party is in full bloom. The DJ driving the crowd as if he is radio controlling the pleasure centers of their brain, causing people to pogo and otherwise floss and just give themselves over with reckless abandon. There's a often tossed off aphorism, dance like no one is watching. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're not keeping time to the music. They're moving to the vicissitudes of their own pleasure, some going so far as to actually indulge and engage in their pleasure. There are rumors that you've heard for years about the parties thrown at places like Prop House or Red No or the Metro or the granddaddy of them all, the institution of institutions, the succubus. And there's a sinking suspicion, a feeling driven home by the fact that you spot fangs and throat. What most people would assume a simple making out, you can see the dribble and spurt of blood from a mile away. The bass isn't coming from the DJ. This isn't a mixed together wall of sound. It's music, the bass line coming from somewhere else in the building. And as you look past the people dancing and pogoing and engaging in all sorts of wild, reckless, abandoned movement that on the surface quantifies as dancing, you realize that around the edges there are people dressed in punk regalia, safety pins through ears, some through noses, mohawks 6 and 7 inches tall, jackets so torn and well worn that they are nothing more than just patches held together by little thin strips of blue jean, leather so old and creaky that you can smell the vomit on the floor of CBGB's, and then behind them, the defining landmark of the basement of the succubus, the maze. You know that in the course of the last 4 hours, you have traveled from Riverdale to Chicago proper, and you have found an entrance, an egress into the heart of what the Kindred institution could be. And realizing that you are in Chicago and at the succubus, I'd like to thank you both for a lovely episode. I look forward to seeing you guys next week, with our next episode. And good night, everybody. Have fun.
Good night.